Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So holidays are upon us, aren't they? I mean, really, you've been in the stores, right? It's Christmas there, right? I mean, we haven't even had turkey yet, or tofurkey, or whatever you're going to eat on Thanksgiving. You know, it's like as soon as the Halloween candy's on sale, it's off to the races, isn't it? It's crazy. Holidays. And we're not all ready for those necessarily. Now, I think there's probably a few of you out there, maybe 10% that I run into at least, who have not only have their list and checked it twice, they have it half checked off already. They have been, there you go, have already been in it. I mean, totally in it. They have already taken all the decorations down, and they have checked to see how well they were stored and how they survived and where they're going to put what. And then there's the other 90% of us. At least that's my worldview. Where we are questioning whether we're going to get into the mood in time, right? And maybe we have some issues, and maybe we have some stuff going on in our lives that is really keeping us at bay, keeping all of that happiness and joy and all that fa-la-la-la-la stuff out. We want to keep it at arm's length. We don't really want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. Maybe we don't want to see our family this year. Maybe, really. Maybe there's some things going on in our lives that we just really want to kind of just hide out from. We don't want to go to the parties or throw one. We don't want to go shopping and wrap gifts and show up and have those difficult conversations around the table with people we love but disagree with. There's a lot of stuff flying around at this time of year. Not to mention busyness, just flat out busyness, right? It's like, aren't we busy enough without double timing everything to try to get to the stores and buy the stuff and get all the things ready for all the people that we're going to shuffle through our houses, or that parties we're going to throw or be part of or whatever? I mean, there's just a lot. And sometimes we're just not up for it. And sometimes we're at a loss. And sometimes we find ourselves longer and longer periods of time of feeling disconnected and kind of out here by ourselves, right? Past losses and upsets that haven't been resolved or healed, that are underlined by holiday time, or reminders that this will be the first Christmas that, ... without this one or that loved one, or without the spouse, or without that child, whatever. Losses, challenges, pain. It can keep us from being present to the joy of the season. Luckily for us, Reverend Sheila's ceremony of radical forgiveness has set off waves of powerful healing for 50 people in this church on Sunday. Maybe feeling it. Some of you may have done that. How many of you were part of that? And raise your hand if you would. Wasn't that something? I've heard about it. It set the tone in a beautiful way for how it is that we can move from our forgiveness work into an energy, a vortex of healing. That's what the opportunity is. But trying to get into this season, into this place. I was struck by something I read in the New York Times, an article called Ode to a Dark Season by Margaret Rinkle. She's writing out of Nashville, so think about this as you hear it. To walk in any well-managed forest during November is to confront the inevitability of death. You see why I liked it, right? This is the month of blank, lowering skies, when the last of the leaves lift and drift away into a drizzly wind. The sugar maples have gone golden at last, though not in the bright glory of October. This year, they're glowing against gray November skies, each leaf giving off its own light, a tiny sun come to earth. The birds themselves have largely fallen silent, their summertime music giving way to sharper calls of warning whenever a hawk is near. You see, the hawks are always hunting on these gray days, when they can fly without casting a shadow. But the chipmunks hear the blue jays' warning jeer and take note. They stand upright, their tiny feet pressed against their chest to take up the cry of warning. Almost everything in November feels mournful to me. Perhaps because late autumn is the time when my father's cancer stopped responding to treatment, and when a decade later my beloved mother-in-law entered hospice care. Perhaps it's only because my own birthday falls in late October, and at 58 I feel the throb of time more acutely with every passing autumn. This year, that feeling was complicated by a routine medical screening, and as I waited for the doctor to call with the pathology report that would clarify whether a long family history of cancer had finally caught up with me, I looked up his preliminary diagnosis online and scared myself to death. And I've not found my way to being half in love with easeful death, as the poet Keats says. And when my doctor called to say the biopsy had come back with no sign of malignancy, relief swept through me like a high November wind. Never mind that such news is only ever a reprieve. Maybe it was contemplating the possibility of my own death that made me look at all the small, seasonal deaths with a sense of kinship, like this one. Fallen leaves soften the path I walk on, but not for my sake. The leaves fall to feed the trees, to shelter the tiny creatures who are essential to this forest in a way that I will never be. The misty rain unstiffens the wood of dead trees, making places for nesting woodpeckers to excavate next spring, making a home for the insects that will feed the woodpeckers and so many other living things. So much life springs from all this death that to spend time in the November woods is also to contemplate immortality. On the way out of the park last week, I passed a red-tailed hawk lying at the base of a power pole, apparently electrocuted. Its great wing extended in death. You thought this was going to be fun, didn't you? Yeah. The vultures were already beginning to circle as I passed. I drove on knowing that what would come next, what always comes next. Death to life, earth to air, wing to wing. November reminds us that the membrane between life and death is permeable, an endless back and forth that makes something of everything, no matter how small, no matter how temporary. To be temporary is only one part of life. Because you see, there will always be a resurrection. Loneliness is reported to be an epidemic in Western countries. Half of all Americans are unmarried, 30% of marriages are severely strained. A quarter of Americans live alone. Britain has instituted a minister for loneliness. Interesting. Encouraging social connection and engagement with grants and policies, keeping public transportation open so people travel about and engage. Common areas have been equipped with friendly benches, they call them, so that you can chat with someone you don't know. Grants are given for game clubs to be established and bird watching to engage people to join in. But you see, being alone isn't the problem. Feeling lonely and disconnected, that's an inside job, really. Here in our ministry, we have responded with creating the opportunity to join spirit groups, small groups, where people get to know each other at greater depth. They've been really well embraced here. And this last session we started over a year ago, spirit groups, but this last session, 300 people were engaged in it. I think it speaks mightily to that need and that desire for us to want to know one another and be known. We just don't know how to do it. You know that little friend that we carry with us everywhere, that we can't live without? We would leave a child behind, but we would not leave this behind, right? We would turn around and go back and get it because it has everything that's going on, right? It's our connection and our distraction. It's our connection and our disconnection. It is the illusion of connecting. It is a multiplicity of distractions and communications and words and pictures and videos and all kinds of stuff that we post everywhere and that we share. And yet we really don't connect. We respond and it becomes one more thing we have to do, one more thing we do, one more way in which we play at being connected. But we really keep our distance, don't we? There's an ancient biblical story of two women of tragedy and loss. Reverend Michael reminded us of this story, told it beautifully. Just remind you about it right now. It's Ruth and Naomi. Naomi's name means bitter. Because her situation was she not only lost her husband and became a widow, she lost her two sons. And their wives then became widowed as well. And so Orpah and Ruth, the two daughters-in-law, clung to Naomi. And Naomi, with nothing left in this foreign land where her husband had brought her, now without a husband to protect her or to take care of her, wanted to return to her own land. And they wanted to come with her. And she dissuaded them from coming. Orpah stayed where she was, but Ruth refused to leave her and came with her. She said, "Where you go, I will go. That your people will become my people, and your God, my God." And so they went together back home to a place where Naomi hadn't been in years and was taken up and found a place in Boaz's, the landowner, whose fields they were gleaning as widows were allowed to do to try to collect enough food to make it, to live on. And Boaz fell in love with Ruth, and they got married. And Boaz moved Ruth and Naomi, his kinsman, into his home. And when the child was born, a son, Naomi got to raise yet another son. It breaks my heart with love and joy every time I think of that. We trace Jesus' lineage through that son, through Ruth. It's fascinating what it is that will come out of heartbreak and loss and trauma and pain. And these are the opportunities for us at this time of year where we may not feel like jumping into joy and jumping into celebration and jumping into Christmas fa la 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 and all of that stuff. We probably will do it anyway. We'll show up. We'll try to stand in a corner. We'll try not to be a drag on everybody else. But at the same time, there's a way that we can find maybe a side door to come in on. We may not feel like walking in the front door to all of the noise and the joy because we're just not feeling it. But there is a place in us where joy resides no matter what occurs. That there is a joy in us that is possible to find in the quiet moments, in the times of reflection, in the nature walks, like Margaret does when she goes walking in Nashville through the forest and sees all that is and finds the beauty in it, even at this time of year. By following instincts to return to those we love and to things that matter most, like Naomi and Ruth did. And a child came from it, and a future, and a blessing to the world. And whether we're related by blood or marriage or none of those at all, that there are people we want to spend our time with, and we should name them and call them up. Trusting in life and looking for opportunities to connect and then acting on them. Use your phone to find them and then put it away. This is your time to be a human being. Be human. Be real. Be yourself. Bring your love. And if you have a nasty little sense of humor, or if you have, a bad mood, that just makes you more lovable in a way. And maybe that's how you find out who your real friends are anyway. And they'll be on your list next year for presents, right? Those are the ones you'll give gifts to. Trusting in life, looking for opportunities to connect and acting on them, and finding our way to the warm hearth of friendship and inviting friends to ours. Now that's what the season is all about. We just forgot. Hafiz gives us good advice too. Stay close to anything that makes you feel glad to be alive. Touch a live wire. Avoid electrocution, however, but feel that connection. A quieter sense of joy, because just maybe you'll find that side door in the side way to celebrate this season your way. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.